Hi friends, we'll just wait for the rest of us to join. Let's see. Yeah, I could see Mukta joining in just a moment.
Hi, Sudha. Good evening.
Hi Mukta, good evening. Sorry for yesterday, there was some big
Hi, no
problem going
problem.
on.
That's fine. That's fine. I can understand. No problem.
We'll wait for 1 minute. Huh? I see Rohi joining in as
Ah,
well.
sure, sure. Okay.
Sarangs is joining in as well. Hi Rohi, can you hear me?
Hello.
Yeah,
Yes.
hello. Okay. Give me 1 minute. I think Sarangs is
Hi,
also joining
Rohit.
in. So let me share some my screen. Where is the screen? Yeah. Okay, so I did some tests as you can see on my screen from the console. So we will do some hands-on, right? I mean, we will have some definite hands-on from here because that's the only way we can learn the basics of SQL. So once we have learned that, right, then what we can do is that I've got hold of a few resources when I was brushing my skills. At that time, I came across certain websites where there are, let's say, practice problems. So those websites are really not built for us to learn something. It's built for like the kind of it's a competitions that happens on various programming languages. Like let's say there's a website called HackerRank. So similar to HackerRank, there are other places as well from where we can get exercises, which I'm going to share with you, maybe in our group itself, so that we can practice alongside. But the basics is something that we need to cover, right? So that is something that we can cover here in the sessions, and then we can cover the practicals as you go along. So what we are going to do, as you may have already guessed looking at my screen, is that we have this AWS cloud, which we were discussing last as well. We will continue from there. We'll create an instance. As you can see, I already started or tried to create one instance there. So I was doing some practices there, right? And then I was just looking into what uh, kind of, let's say, facilities I can use over here. So I believe the best way, also a very cost-effective way, will be to have our own installation of a MySQL database. So there are two reasons. This thing which you see over here, right? This T2 Micro. This is actually a class of AWS host, right? So while we create an instance, we will come to know more about this as to what this really means. But it seems I played around with this test instance, which I've just stopped so that I don't, export or eat up all my free 750 hours, right? Which we saw on the last day as well, that there is a free limit of 750 hours of computing per month, right? So I don't want to have that expired, so that's why I've stopped it. But that's also a good practice that we can follow. I mean, whenever we are doing a practice, we start the server and then we can stop it whenever we don't need it. Okay, so let's not run the servers for unlimited period of time. Now, we may not be going through the details of cloud here right now. If you want to learn, I can give you the resources. I have some very good resources for you to learn what is AWS or the GCP environment all about. But we will concentrate mostly on, let's say, MySQL database, because what I saw is in this class of server, I am able to, install. I am able to install uh, uh, a MySQL database quite easily. I'm able to log in and I'm able to fire queries, and I'm not seeing any lag or any performance issue, irrespective of the fact that the server is really, really very small. When we create a new one right now, because I have to show you, right, how to create a new one. So in that case, we'll see it has very less memory and RAM, but irrespective of that, it has worked really well, right? Uh, it may well also be because of the architecture of MySQL. It's quite simple, and it helps doing kind of things. So MySQL is not like a playground thing. Okay, to be very honest, I have production database instances running on 12, 14 hosts, which are having TBs of data, which is stored into MySQL, and that's really being used into production. Okay, it's not for, let's say, testing purposes and so on. So it's a real thing. It's not like MySQL is nowhere close when it comes to Oracle. Obviously, in the RDBMS domain, nobody can at this point in time really beat the Oracle or the technology that they have created, right? I understand that, but overall, it's really easy to relate back to the fact that MySQL is also kind of a market leader. So if you know any one of the database, that is going to give you the edge, right, behind learning any other database, because in due course of our time, we will come to know there will be other databases as well. Example given, databases which will store data in form of key, and then the value of that key may even be a document. Okay, so this kind of a document storage is something which is stored into other databases, otherwise known as not only SQL or NoSQL, right? So these are things that we have to play around whenever we are doing our job as a data scientist. We'll have to do a lot of data engineering, because it's like the entire thing to have the data understood or the business question understood from the place when we understand the architecture. That's why we looked into the data warehousing architecture as well, right? And then moving over to, let's say, how to query the database where we have the data. It may well be a physical database like the one that we are going to see now, or it can be other tools, okay, other enterprise tools like Elasticsearch or Splunk, where you have the data. From there, we may have to query and pull it, and then we have to clean the data. Then our statistical analysis, the ones that we have seen until date, right, and using pandas and all the IPattern notebook that we have created, that's the third or fifth or seventh stage in the line of things. The preliminary stages are like understanding the business questions and so on. So we may have some sessions related to understanding business questions as well, which I would like to share with you basis my experience. But let's, as of now, continue with this. We'll start with this kind of a database, and we'll see how it goes. So yes, so to launch an instance in AWS, the first thing, as I told you yesterday or in the last meet as well, I have simply selected the region from here. Okay, I logged on and I selected, let's say, Mumbai region, obviously because Mumbai is near to where I'm staying, right? So because I'm in India, so we all are in India, we can actually select the Mumbai region, because that's going to give you a bit more smooth network access. Okay. Anyways, basis the kind of network that Amazon has, you won't be able to understand any difference. If you are going to use US, you won't understand any difference at all. But the only difference this region thing makes, right, on an overall basis, is this. So if I click on the services drop down, you will see there are a lot of services which is provided by AWS. You see, there's a huge list of services grouped by why they are. So for example, for migration transfer related activities, these are the tools which AWS is providing, right? We will be using this one now. So we will be using the compute tool, where we have so many options, right? So now it actually depends on in which region you are, and basis the region, the services will be available to you or not available to you, right? So for example, there may well be more things in blockchain area which is available in the US region as compared to the Mumbai region, right? So in Mumbai region, maybe this is only one thing that is available. If you look at the US, maybe more things are available. If you look at Frankfurt, even more things are available. We don't know. So it really depends on how AWS has rolled out the deployments of these kind of services, right? So that's the only difference we'll find. Other than that, you won't find anything. Okay. Just a quick tip: if you don't want to hover around after logging onto AWS console, you can click on this pin icon which is there over here. And the moment you click, you can see all the services listed over here. So what you do, you select the service which you are going to use. Let's say in this case, I'm going to use EC2, right? Elastic Cloud Computing. EC2 is what I'm going to use to create the virtual machine. I simply pick this up. I drag and drop this icon on my taskbar, right? I drag and drop this icon on my taskbar. And I am also going to use simple storage service. I have to find where that is, S3, right? S3 is here. Simple storage service I'm going to use. And I'm going to put it over here. Okay, and then I'm going to click on that pin once more. It is pinned now. So using the same browser that I'm using, this is Chrome. Okay, every time I log into this account of mine, I will be able to see these two icons. Right, so this is like a handy feature to have the things here. Right now, Let's go to this launch instance option. Okay, so what we are essentially doing here is, as we are just trying to create a new virtual machine. Okay, we are going to create a new virtual machine, and we will simply select first of all an image from where we can create a virtual machine. So quickly, an image is nothing but, you can consider that as an operating system. Okay, an operating system which is completely built. This is like the OS, and you have the driver, and you have the basic softwares, right? Everything is packaged. So this is like an image. Okay, somebody installed this already on some server, created an image. You can also create an image of your own host, right? And then this is packaged as an image. So either this image which is available in AWS is either free of cost, or it may be cost. It can be associated with a cost as well. So for example, there are images created by companies like Apple or SAP and so on, and they will be packaging it so that you can simply install the image, your software is installed, right? You don't need any operations engineer to create a VM and install the software. So example given, we are installing this MySQL thing, right? So if you come over here and search for an AMI here, right, you may be able to find the one which has MySQL. Okay, let's search and see if there is one. You see, this image which we have, this default image contains these tools: AWS command line, Python, Ruby, Perl, and Java. Repositories include Docker, PHP, MySQL, Postgre, right? So, but there are others in the marketplace as well, right? And there are 201 in the community AMIs. Community AMIs are where, or AMI is Amazon Machine Images. Okay, so AMIs which you find in the community area are like the ones which are usually built by the universities or by the open source foundations and so on. Okay, so you already have such kind of, it's a machines, but we are not going to use that. What we are going to do, we are going to go back to what we were doing. Let's just cancel this. We'll start from scratch. We'll use the first one. The only thing that you need to check, again a tip, always check for this. Is it free tier eligible or not? Unless and until you have good amount of, let's say, balance on your credit card, I wish you all the best. If you are not selecting free tier, then it is going to really, really cost you. Okay. So select free tier and always select this x86, not ARM. Okay. We have faced some problems with ARM architecture. We had a few servers in our environment, and right in the office environment, I mean, which we tried out with ARM architecture. It did not really scale well, right? So for all practical purposes, we are going to select x86, and obviously we are going to select free tier eligible. Go ahead, Mukta.
Sudha, what is the difference between ARM and this x86? Because this is with the Windows one, first one.
No, no,
So this
no.
ARM
See,
is something like a
x86
Mac
and
OS?
no. ARM and x86 is basically the type of Intel CPU, right? So Intel
Okay,
has made the
okay.
CPU where there is a
Uh-huh.
hardware. So Amazon has that hardware, right? Because that's the
Uh-huh.
meaning of cloud. When you are using this image to create a virtual machine, it will be created somewhere in a physical, it's a server, right? So that server
Right.
is either going to have a CPU which is of type x86 or ARM.
Uh-huh. So this is anyways available.
Yeah.
So both of them will be available, right?
Yes, yes. You can select which one you want.
Configuration, yeah, configuration on the system is not required.
No, no.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so you don't have to install the hardware. You don't have to configure the system libraries or the drivers. You just have to select the image, create the virtual machine, it is done.
Okay.
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 Okay, then let's select this, and then on the second page again, we have to be careful here. When this page loads, there will be a family column which you see over here and a type thing. Please ensure that in this type thing, you have this green tag which says free tier eligible, right? It clearly says, if you hover your mouse here, right, you can see a tooltip which says micro instances are eligible for the AWS free tier, which means the first 12 months from the AWS sign update, you get 750 hours of microservice instances per month. Okay, so that's the CPU that you can burn, but see the size. It's only one CPU and one memory. Now, why does it call a vCPU? Right, it calls it a vCPU because it is the number of virtual CPUs. These are all going to be virtual machines. Not that you are creating an instance over here, it means you're creating a physical server. No, that the date, that age has gone. Okay, so when we are creating the images or when we are creating the VMs from here, they are the virtual machines, right? So because it is free tier, I'm going to select the free tier, and then I'm going to do next configure instance details, which is at the bottom right side here. And then I'll select number of instances as 1. Usually I'll leave this as it is because we don't want to get into the nitty gritty details of what AWS and how it works. But I'm just going to confirm whether I'm creating one VM or not. So this is another good thing to check. So I selected free tier AMI, the first one in the list. Then on the second page, I ensured I am selecting the row, which is the machine type, which is also free tier eligible. The third page, I am saying the number of instances is equal to 1. Then on the next page, I do the storage. So by default, 8 GB is what you get for free. The more you add, the more you'll have to pay, right? Free tier eligible customers can get up to 30 GB of EBS. So this is a new change that they have made, which means that you can either increase this to 30, or you can add a new disk, which can be, let's say, 8 minus 30, or the 30 minus 8, which can be 22, right? This is something which they have recently added because of the flexibility which they need. So up to 30 GB of EBS. What is EBS? Elastic uh, 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 disk spaces. Okay, so these are kind of disks which are also the elastic way, or they are called the elastic ones because they can increase and decrease. Okay, usually you cannot decrease. Okay, if you have already created a disk of 10 GB, you can increase it to 12 GB, you can increase it to 20 GB, but you cannot decrease the 20 GB disk to 10 GB. Okay, to decrease that, you will have to create a new VM and then copy all the data from the first VM into the next VM, and then you can carry on, right? But here, because of the fact that we are only going to use it for MySQL, I'm going to select the default one, which is 8 GB. Okay. Next, I'll add some tag over here. Its tag is like just a name to the virtual machine that you're going to give. So I'm going to say the tag, which will be name. Okay, I'm going to give it a name, and I'm going to call this MySQL. Okay, and I'm going to give it our uh, group name. Okay, so MySQL learning data science -1, right? You can give here any name you want. It should just be understandable, because over a period of time and in a very practical kind of a scenario, if you have a lot of, let's say, virtual machines, you should be able to understand which virtual machine is for which purpose. Okay. Next, this is a very important thing. People usually ignore this. Please don't ignore this. I know you may not know anything about security group, but we will quickly go through what a security group means and why you really need this. As of now, we won't be doing anything with it. We'll just give it a name, right? We're just going to give it a name. Okay, I'm going to go into the previous page. I'm just going to select this name once, and I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to give the same name here and here. So in the name of the security group and the description, I've simply pasted it. But the point is, what is a security group? Okay, let's quickly look at it. We'll not go in depth right now. If you want, I can share you the resources. Let's just quickly go through. If imagine this is your virtual machine. Every virtual machine which you create in any cloud environment is governed by a virtual network layer. Okay, this virtual network layer is also known as VPC, or virtual private cloud. So any VM, in this case, I am creating an EC2 instance. So Elastic Cloud Computing instance is what I'm creating. So my EC2 with the image that I've selected and the disk that I've selected resides inside a VPC. You may not have already noticed because I went a little bit fast. On the second page, when I was looking on the third page, right, when I was looking into the number of instances, there was already a drop down to select or change the VPC. I've not made any changes there. So by default, when you create an account into AWS, a default VPC is created for you, right, which has an IP address range of 172.31.something.something. Okay, so this is the range of IP addresses which is possible within this network. Okay, it may well be 172.32. I just have to cross check. The moment we create a VM, we will come to know, so don't worry. Now, any VM which you create inside this, right, is going to have an IP address of this range. For example, if I create a first VM, it may well have an IP address 172.31.0.1. right? So this becomes my actual IP address of the virtual machine which I create. Please note, this is an elastic environment. This is a cloud environment. The moment you delete the VM tomorrow, the moment you delete, not stop, the moment you delete the VM tomorrow, this IP address is released. Okay, this IP address is released. It is released to the world, which is going to use their default VPCs. Okay, it is released to the world, which means at the same moment when, let's say, I have deleted my VM, at the same moment, if Mugdha has created her own VM, it may well be possible that the same IP address is now allocated to her VM, and I will not be able to use it anymore, right? This IP address reallocation is dynamic. It is managed by Amazon, right? You don't have to manage it. IP addresses will be provided, assigned or de-assigned, right, from your virtual machines. Only when you create a virtual machine, you get an IP address. You destroy a virtual machine, okay, completely destroy a virtual machine, you release the IP address. But that's maintained by the range of IP which is supported by this virtual private cloud. Now, why I'm saying this is because my intention will be, I'm going to change my color, and my intention will be something like this. I want to make this VPC, for example, very strong. Okay, that's why I've selected a color like this, and maybe even a darker color I'm going to select. So I'm going to make this boundary very strong. What I mean by that is, if you have played such kind of games where you have to, create your own empire and you have to build them with very strong defense kind of thing. So I just want to make the defense of my virtual private cloud very strong. Why? Because I know I have friends in China, okay, who claim to be my friends. They may or may not be my friends, and they can anytime, they are always in that lookout in the cyber cafe or at their homes. They're always lookout for cases where I don't have this kind of strong boundary over here, or there can be people from other countries as well. China was just an example here, no offense. So people are already waiting for this firewall to go down or this security to be weak, so that they can log into your machine by hacking your ID and password. Irrespective of how much secure AWS is, AWS always suggests that you have to create this boundary of your own, right? They provide you the network layer with some boundary, which is already there. You have to configure the boundary. So that's exactly what we are going to do in case of security group. Although we are not doing it here, but please note this very, very important point. This is really, really very important. Okay. Please note this very, very important point. If you have a security group, it is basically a set of firewall rules that control the traffic to your instance. Who can come inside, who cannot come inside. What I mean by that is, because I have given a name over here, I can select the source. You see, the source as of now is mentioned as 0.0.0.0. It means it is open to the world. You see over here, it is written. Rules with source as this allow all IP addresses in the entire world to log into your virtual machine. Right? The entire world can now log into your virtual machine, provided they have the ID and password. That's where the catch is, because the ID and password are also secured. Obviously, you will not be sharing it or, let's say, posting it onto GitHub, right? So people may have a very difficult time in their lives hacking your ID and password, but it is possible. There are other kinds of attacks which is possible, like direct denial of service, or let's say brute force and so on. Okay, so this kind of attacks is really possible. So ideal condition, I'm going to select this drop down. I should not select anywhere. I should actually select my IP. If I select my IP, it takes my IP address. Okay, almost usually this works. Okay, let's see if it works. Good. If it does not work, we are going to again change this back to anywhere. Okay, but let's start with this. Now, how to verify if this IP address is correct or not? I can go to a website called what is my IP. Okay, so I go to Google and I search for what is my IP. And here I get the IP address. Yeah, hi Saransh. Hello.
So this IP is your local machine IP?
Yes. So this is my local machine's IP. So if I open a command prompt as well, and if I say, let's say ipconfig kind of a command, right, it's going to show me this IP, right? But this
So
IP,
how will local machines IP help in the security group?
okay. So what this does is, if this is my public IP address, and if I am putting it over here in the security group over here, and then I'm adding a /32, this is kind of a quiz for you. You can find out why I have done this. Okay. Now, the moment I have added it over here, that virtual machine which was inside the VPC, right? This VPC is saying, no, my friends, I'm very sorry to disappoint the friends from, let's say, Russia or China or any other country. I cannot allow anyone else other than the person with this IP address to enter into the security group. So I select the protocol, okay, and the port on which I'm going to connect to this host. Because this is a Linux host, right? This is a Linux host. Obviously, I'm going to SSH. I'm going to SSH to the host on port number 22. But this security group, because I've given it an IP address here, this SG security group will say on this VPC for this VM which is getting created, only Mr. XYZ, I don't want to know who that person is, but that person should have this IP address. If I find this IP address or requests coming from the internet from this IP address, then only I'm going to allow SSH connection over port number 22. Else I won't. Now, what happens if you change this? If you let's say change this to, let's say, anywhere, if let's say if you change this to custom or to anywhere, right, then anyone with any IP address can log into your machine, or at least try to log into your machine. So you are allowing this type of access, which is SSH on XYZ port, in this case that is 22, from either all the IP addresses of the world. It's like inviting all the hackers, or you are specifying only your IP.
Yeah, Bhumik, it's clear. I think it's your host IP so that
Exactly,
your
exactly.
machine can log in.
Yes, or in other words, you can also say this is the IP address of your machine, which the world can see. When you are connected to the internet, every time you connect to the internet, this IP will change if you are using a regular internet connection at home. Okay, why? Because we usually don't take a static IP address. If your internet service provider has given you a static IP address along with your internet or broadband plan, then this IP will never change. But the moment I reconnect to my Wi-Fi, right, this IP is going to change, right? So please be careful. If that IP is going to change, we might be in a trouble. But I just wanted to inform you that we can have an IP address like this over here, just to restrict the access. This is just a good practice, right? So you have selected the image, selected the number of instances, you have selected free tier everywhere. We have created a security group. Then we simply say review and launch. It should simply give us a summary of what we have done. We already know what we have done. So let's do a launch. Now it is going to ask the most important question in your life. If you are not careful here, you won't be able to log into your VM. You'll have to destroy it and re-log in again. Please pay attention. If you already have created a key pair, then you can download it, or it is asking which key pair you want to use. So the concept of, let's say, key pair is what? You have a virtual machine like this. You want to log into it using a username and a password. Okay. Amazon says this is a very bad way to do. Any cloud provider will say username and password is a very bad way to do. Why? Because this password thing is, obviously, if you are from an English keyboard user or a Chinese keyboard user, right, or a Russian keyboard user or a Japanese keyboard user, this password is basically a combination of alphabets, right, and a combination of, let's say, numbers, right? So A to Z and 1 to 9, which means using some kind of a coding practice, otherwise known as brute force, I'm going to take all the combinations of digits, which is 26 in total, and I'm going to take all the combinations of the numbers, okay, which is 1 to 9, right? Or here I have, say, 10 numbers, so 0 to 9, right? And then I can take the combination of all the special characters. I can write a code which is going to iteratively try the username and the password, and it can break your system. Okay, it can either hack your system or break your system, right? Break in the sense you're going to have thousands of requests, okay, coming to your VM, and the VM is going to get clouded because of those requests. The network might break, the server might go down, and so on. Or else people may be smart enough, they have written maybe good code, and they are really smart, and they have used a lot of regex and all these things. They have broken your password, you are destroyed. Okay, so that's why Amazon or any cloud provider does not justify the use of username and password. Instead, they say with every username, create a security file, otherwise known as a key pair. Okay, this is known as a key pair. You can simply consider this a very complicated alphanumeric password, which we are going to see now, right? Very complicated alphanumeric password stored in a file. Okay, that file has two copies. Okay, that file has 2 copies. One copy is called a private copy. One copy is called a public copy. Okay, the public copy is stored on the VM. The moment you create the VM, it gets stored on the VM. The private copy is with you, and you have to download this right now. If you don't download this right now, please forget your VM. You have to destroy the VM, recreate the VM once more. Please note this carefully. If you don't download this private copy, you will not be able to access your VM. Okay, nobody can help you. Even Amazon Web Service support will not be able to help you. Please remember to download the private key. Okay, only by the combination of this private key and public key will this combination, this key pair combination matches, the password gets accepted. Right, and that's exactly what we are going to do over here. I'm going to not select an existing key pair. Obviously I've created one, as you can see, but I'm going to create a new key pair. I'm going to give it the same name, right? MySQL Learning Data Science. I have to download. You see, it is clearly mentioned. You have to download the private key file right now. Store it in a secure or accessible location. You'll not be able to download the file again after it is created. You won't be able to download it. Okay, please download this right now. So let me download. Okay, let me download. Let's not take any risk. I will go to desktop, or maybe I can put it over here as well, right? I can put it inside my folder, and I can put it here. It is downloaded. As you can see, the PM file is now downloaded. Right, it's done. All right, I can simply click on launch instances, and I should be able to launch my first instance. Right, your instances are now launching. I want to see what is going on. I'll click on EC2. Right, and click on EC2, and in this window that is going to load, right, I can see that new name. Okay, a VM with that name that I have given is getting created. Maybe by the time it logs on, it may have already been created. Right, any queries until this point? Because to practice, you will have to do it yourself.
Sudha,
Yeah.
for my IP, I have a query. It's
Yeah.
like, suppose I give it my IP and then it is taking one constant value, right? Next time, if I am logging in, then my IP would change. So will it be dynamic based on my login or it would be constant?
No, it will be
Like a
dynamic
static
based on
number?
your Wi-Fi connection if you have not already taken a static IP.
Yeah, no, not for my this logging in, but for the place where it takes up the IP in AWS.
No, no,
That
no,
would be the
no,
same which we have
no.
specified
Yeah,
for the
it will be
first
the
time.
same. It will be the same until you restart your
Mhm.
Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Mhm.
So in that case, if there is an electricity cut or something, that would cause a problem, right?
Yeah, yeah, that can cause a problem. That is the reason why you need to have some IP range, or you need to have a static IP. So if your broadband provider is giving you a static IP for free, I would actually suggest that you take that up.
Okay, cool. Fine.
Okay, I see that our job is done. So this is my VM. I'll click on this checkbox which is over here so that I can see some information, because this is really useful. This is the host name, the very big and complicated host name, but it really gives a lot of details. This is an EC2 instance with an IP address, which is something like this. Just like your IP, the machine also has an IP. So this is its public IP, and there is a private IP as well. Private IP is this. This is the one that I was talking about, right? It has a pool of IP addresses from 172.31.something.something. That something.something got assigned as 10.101. Right? It's entirely random. Nobody selected it. You did not get any option to select that IP. Okay. You can change that. There is a way, right? But it is a costly way. I'm not really going to go through that right now. But you can only change the public IP. You cannot change the private IP allocation to a VM. Okay. Every time you restart the machine, this public IP may change as well in some zones, right? So be careful if you are saving the information about this VM into some SSH tool, which we are going to use. So the SSH tool that we would like to use to log into this host it'll be PuTTY. I'm sure you may have heard about it. Let me just go to its website. If you don't have this, please have this downloaded, and you should have this installed. Okay, what I mean by installed is if you go to this website, then you see you can download PuTTY here. If you click this here link, right, you get an exe file, an executable file. Please download the 64-bit MSI installer and have that installed, because we will need two tools over here. The first tool is going to be the PuTTY client, by means of which we are going to log on. And the second is going to convert that PM file, that private key file, into a Windows understandable format. Okay, so let me just open that tool and share my screen so that we can see that tool, because somehow, give me 1 minute. Give me 1 minute. It's opening up now. Okay, so I've just opened it, and let me just share this. So as you can see on my screen, I have an application called PuTTYgen. Okay, this is a PuTTY key generator. Okay, why do I need this? Is because the download that we have done, right, of that private key file, it's for Linux users, because you have created a Linux VM. Okay, all of those keys are usually generated in a Linux world. You have to convert that into a Windows world, because obviously I'm logging on from Windows. If you are using MacBook, or if you are using any Unix flavor, you don't have to do this step, right? So this is only applicable for you if you are on Windows, just like me. What you do, you go to load. Okay, you go to load and you find that file. Okay, you have to find that file. I have to find it, so I select type as all files and I select that file. Okay, where is that file? It is not here. It is should be inside this folder. This is the PM file. I hope you can see my screen, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
Bob.
Yeah,
screen
yeah.
is visible.
Okay. So I just opened that file, the PM file that I downloaded. The only change I will make, key comment. Okay. Because of some weird reason, it gives some dummy text over here, imported OpenSSH key. Remove this line from here. Okay. Or otherwise, you will face problems logging in. Right. This is just a tip. The moment you have removed it, you have to save the private key. This is the private key, right? The public key is where it is there on the VM. You have the private key. So save the private key. It asks, are you sure you want to save this key without a passphrase? You see, we have not given it a passphrase. Okay. So it's fine. It's fine. I'm going to say it's yes. It's okay. Right? It's fine. Absolutely fine. I have no problem. I will come over here. I'm again going to give it the same name. Okay, and I'm going to save it. Now see, the file extension has changed, PPK. So PPK is what Windows is expecting, right? PPK is what Windows is expecting. So let me just share again my screen. Okay, now what we are going to do is we are going to go to our AWS Management Console. I'm simply going to copy this. I have copied this to the clipboard. You can use this option to copy, or you can right click and copy as well. I'm going to open my PuTTY actual application. Okay, the PuTTY connection application. Let me share the screen. And you already see that I have other connections created over here, right? So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to call this host name over here. But what I'm going to put EC2 hyphen user. Okay, EC2 is the VM type that I've created, right? So EC2 hyphen user becomes my default username. Okay, EC2 hyphen user @ the host name. I save the session using some good name that I can give, MySQL Learning Data Science. Right? I click on save, the session is saved. Right? But my job is not done. Why? Because I have to load it again, and I have to provide inside this SSH option. I go to auth, and in browse, I select the PPK file. Right? I have to give the PPK file, or otherwise, how is it going to understand what is my password? So I went to session, entered EC2 user @ hostname as my hostname. Port number is 22. That's what we allowed in the security group as well, right? The protocol SSH, name I have given something. I save it and I click on open. Okay, the screen sharing should have stopped. Let me just share it once more because we have to end now. Let me just share it quickly and show you. We have successfully logged in into the VM. Right? I don't think we have time, so let's continue tomorrow. Yeah. Thank you, friends.
Thanks, sir.
All
Good
right.
night.
Thanks, Sudha. Bye.
Thank you.